I think it's safe to say that change is on my agenda. Change for good. And I embrace that and I enjoy that change. I don't fear it. That's the bit that excites me.
There are moments in history that do not arrive with fanfare. They do not come wrapped in ceremony or announced with trumpets. Some of the most consequential decisions ever made inside Buckingham Palace arrived quietly, scribbled into official documents, buried in financial reports, and passed through the hands of lawyers and estate managers without so much as a press release. And yet, when the dust settles and the world finally looks closely enough, those quiet decisions turn out to be the ones that changed everything. This is a story about one of those moments. Prince William, the Prince of Wales and heir to the British throne, has long been described by royal observers as a man who thinks in decades, not days. He is methodical, deliberate, and deeply protective, both of the institution he will one day lead and of the memory he carries quietly in his heart. And in the summer of 2024, he made a move that sent a clear, unmistakable signal about exactly what kind of king he intends to be. That move did not involve a speech. It did not involve a public ceremony or a grand declaration. It was something far simpler, and for Camilla's family far more devastating. William removed Queen Camilla's own sister from the royal payroll. The question on everyone's lips became the same. Was this purely a business decision? Or was it the first carefully placed stone in the foundation of a very different monarchy? To understand what happened, you need to understand the Duchy of Cornwall. It is not merely a collection of properties. It is one of the oldest royal estates in existence, dating back over 700 years, encompassing roughly 135,000 acres of land spread across England, primarily in the southwest. It generates tens of millions of pounds annually and serves as the primary financial engine for the heir to the throne. When King Charles ascended to the throne in September 2022, Prince William automatically inherited the title of Duke of Cornwall and, along with it, control of the duchy. It was a transfer of enormous responsibility and enormous power. The duchy was now his to manage, his to reshape, and ultimately his to steer toward the future he envisions for the crown. For nearly 2 decades before that transition, one particular name had appeared consistently on the Duchy of Cornwall's payroll. Annabel Elliot, Queen Camilla's younger sister and a widely respected interior designer and antiques dealer. Charles had hired Elliot in 2005, the same year he married Camilla, and over the years she became the chief designer of his estates, overseeing the renovation and decoration of royal properties in Cornwall, Wales, the Isles of Scilly, and beyond. Her portfolio was impressive. She handled the redesign of the duchy's holiday cottages. She oversaw the refurbishment of a grand 20-bedroom pub at King Charles's Poundbury development in Dorset. She supervised the conversion of cottages and lodges at Dumfries House in Ayrshire, Scotland. In total, over the nearly 20 years of her tenure, she reportedly earned several £100,000 for her services, a relationship that had become, to many observers, simply part of the fabric of royal life under Charles. Then came July 2024. The Duchy of Cornwall's annual integrated annual report was published, and for the first time in nearly 20 years, Annabel Elliot's name was absent from the payments section. No fees. No commission. Nothing. The Telegraph broke the story first. Sources close to the palace confirmed that Prince William would no longer employ Elliot, though they were careful to frame it diplomatically. It was no reflection on her work, insiders told the publication. They added that Elliot's extensive interiors work across the estate is considered complete, and that the current staff have learned sufficiently from her. To some, those words sounded reasonable, almost generous. To others who had been watching the royal family closely for years, they sounded like something else entirely, the carefully worded language of a decision that was never just about interior design. To understand the weight of this moment, you have to travel back in time, not to 2024, not even to 2005 when Camilla and Charles married, but much further. You have to go back to the childhood of a boy who grew up watching his family fall apart on the front pages of every newspaper in the world. Prince William was 11 years old when his parents, Prince Charles and Princess Diana, formally separated. He was 15 when his mother died in a Paris tunnel while being chased by photographers. Between those two events, he watched one of the most painful public divorces in modern history unfold before him, filled with accusations, admissions, and heartbreak broadcast to a global audience. At the center of that storm was a name the world already knew, Camilla Parker Bowles. She had been deeply involved with Charles even during his marriage to Diana, a fact that Diana herself addressed with devastating clarity in her famous 1995 BBC Panorama interview when she told the world, "There were 3 of us in this marriage, so it was a bit crowded." William did not experience those words as a viewer. He experienced them as a son. He did not read about the affair in history books. He lived alongside its consequences, witnessed his mother's pain, and carried those memories into adulthood. Royal commentator and author Christopher Anderson has written extensively about the lasting impact of those years on William's psyche, noting that the Prince of Wales merely tolerates his stepmother and has always remained emotionally distant from her, despite years of shared public appearances and carefully managed family events. Those who know William well describe him as deeply loyal, to his late mother's memory, to his wife Catherine, and to the institution itself. And when those loyalties come into conflict with personal connections that belong to Camilla's world, it seems increasingly clear which side William will choose. For many royal watchers, the removal of Annabel Elliot from the Duchy of Cornwall payroll was significant not simply because of what it was, but because of what it represented. Elliot had not merely been an employee. She had been a symbol, a living link between Camilla's personal family life and the workings of the royal estate itself. When Charles hired her in 2005, it was a gesture of inclusion. It said, in the quiet language of royal decisions, "My wife's family is part of my world." It blurred the line between the institution and the personal in a way that suited Charles's deeply sentimental nature and his desire to build a unified family life after years of turmoil. When William removed her in 2024, it drew that line back with equal clarity. His world, his duchy, his rules. Insiders also noted that William simultaneously moved to bring in his own trusted circle. Harry Aubrey Fletcher, the godfather of Prince Louis, and William Van Cutsum, the godfather of Prince George, were both appointed to advisory roles at the Duchy of Cornwall. In other words, it was not simply that Elliot was removed. She was replaced by people whose loyalty was not to Camilla's family but to William's own. The message was quiet but unmistakable. This is what the future of the monarchy looks like under William. Not cruel. Not dramatic. Not confrontational. Just clear. William's decision about Annabel Elliot did not happen in isolation. It is one piece of a much larger picture that has been forming over the past several years, a picture that is now coming into sharp, undeniable focus. Reports from multiple sources, including a detailed investigation by the Times of London, have revealed that Prince William is planning a sweeping overhaul of the monarchy once he becomes king. The vision he is working toward is not the expansive, inclusive institution that Queen Elizabeth managed or the emotionally complex family that Charles has tried to hold together. It is something leaner, more focused, and far more deliberate. According to the Times, William plans to make his own coronation much simpler than his father's, a reflection of his awareness of public sentiment around royal spending and ceremony. He is said to be deeply conscious of how much the monarchy costs and is determined to ensure that its public engagement delivers maximum impact rather than theatrical tradition for its own sake. Jason Knopf, the CEO of Williams Earthshot Prize and someone who has worked closely with him for years, put it plainly when he told the Times. He wants to make sure the whole thing has even more impact and remains relevant. He has been thinking about the future for years. But the changes go beyond ceremony. Royal insiders have described plans that would fundamentally restructure who sits inside the royal circle and who does not. Proposals reportedly under discussion include stripping titles from non-working royals, a category that would include Prince Andrew and, potentially, the Duke and Duchess of Sussex. They include enforcing strict property rules to prevent rent-free living arrangements that have long been a quiet source of controversy. They include reducing the number of working royals to a tight inner core: William and Catherine, their 3 children, and perhaps Edward and Sophie. The Trooping the Colour ceremony in June 2026 offered the public its most vivid glimpse yet of this evolving reality. The balcony scene, once a sprawling gathering of royals extending across multiple generations, has grown noticeably smaller. The Yorks were absent. The Sussexes were absent. What remained was a portrait of a slimmed-down institution, centered tightly on the direct line of succession and those closest to it. For those who study the monarchy, the symbolism was impossible to miss. One of the questions that hangs most heavily over all of these developments concerns Camilla herself. When Charles eventually passes, Camilla will lose the title of Queen Consort and would typically become known as Queen Dowager, a respected but reduced position within the royal hierarchy. The question of exactly what role she will play under a King William is one that both royal experts and ordinary observers have been wrestling with publicly. Christopher Anderson, writing on this subject, has suggested that Camilla's role in the monarchy may be re-evaluated once William sits on the throne. He has indicated that while she would likely retain some presence in royal life, the nature and extent of that presence would be shaped by William's own judgment, and that his relationship with her has never been characterized by warmth or personal closeness. King Charles has clearly been aware of these concerns. In a move widely interpreted as an attempt to secure Camilla's legacy before it becomes vulnerable to William's future decisions, Charles bestowed upon her the honorary title of Vice Admiral of the United Kingdom, making her the first woman in history to hold that distinction. It was a meaningful gesture, one designed to cement her standing within the institution at a level that would be difficult to quietly dismantle. Whether it will be sufficient to protect her legacy in a post-Charles monarchy remains an open question. What is not in question is that William has never pretended to feel something he does not feel. He is respectful. He is professional. He is capable of sharing a balcony with Camilla and offering a polite smile to the cameras. But those who watch him closely say that the warmth simply is not there, and that in the long run the absence of that warmth matters enormously. No conversation about Prince William's relationship with Queen Camilla or his vision for the future of the monarchy can proceed very far without confronting the presence that never entirely disappears: Princess Diana. She is not there in body. She has been gone for nearly 30 years now. But she is present in every conversation about William's motivations, in every analysis of his relationship with Camilla, and most powerfully in the emotional architecture of a man who watched his mother suffer and who has never forgotten what it felt like. Diana's 1995 Panorama interview was one of the most extraordinary moments in the history of the royal family, and not just because of what she said. It was what she represented. She represented the human cost of the monarchy's ability to close ranks, protect its image, and treat pain as something to be managed rather than acknowledged. She spoke about loneliness, about being made to feel as though her struggles were inconvenient, and about watching the man she married turn to someone else while the institution looked away. William was a teenager when that interview aired. He has never spoken extensively about what it meant to him. He has not needed to. The choices he makes speak with a clarity that words rarely match. Those who support William describe him as someone who has transformed pain into purpose. They see a future king who is determined that the institution he inherits will be one worthy of respect, not because of its pomp and its pageantry, but because of its integrity and its relevance. They see a man who loves the crown but refuses to excuse it. His critics, on the other hand, sometimes see something else. A man whose personal history occasionally colors his institutional decisions in ways that are difficult to fully separate. They point to moments where the line between protecting the monarchy and settling old emotional debts feels uncomfortably thin. The truth, as it so often does, probably lives somewhere in between. Perhaps the most quietly painful figure in this entire story is King Charles himself. He has spent the better part of his adult life pursuing two things simultaneously: a love that the world did not initially accept and a crown that demanded everything of him. He found both, eventually, marrying Camilla in 2005 and ascending to the throne in 2022. And yet even now, as he navigates his own health challenges, he finds himself caught between the two most important people in his life, pulling in opposite directions. Charles has always been a peacemaker by temperament. Those who know him describe a man who prefers quiet negotiation to open conflict, who absorbs tension rather than creating it, and who has spent decades trying to hold together a family that has been anything but simple. His instinct, when faced with competing demands, is to find the middle ground. William does not appear to share that instinct. Those who observe him closely describe someone more comfortable with clarity than with compromise, a man who would rather draw a clear line than spend years in ambiguous negotiation. Where Charles has often tried to include, William seems content to define who belongs and who does not. This difference in style is not merely a personality contrast. It is a generational shift in how the monarchy sees itself and how it intends to operate. Charles's monarchy was built on continuity, healing, and gradual acceptance. William's monarchy, if the signals he is sending are accurate, will be built on something else entirely: focus, efficiency, and an unwillingness to maintain arrangements that no longer serve the institution's needs. For Camilla's family, the gap between those two visions is not abstract. It is measured in lost salaries, reduced invitations, and the growing awareness that the access and proximity they enjoyed under Charles may not survive the transition to his son. It would be easy, and wrong, to reduce what is happening inside the British royal family to a simple story of revenge or resentment. The reality is far more complicated and far more interesting. Prince William is not a man defined by bitterness. By all accounts, he is someone who has done the difficult work of processing a painful childhood and channeling it into a clear sense of purpose. He loves his family. He is devoted to Catherine, fiercely protective of his 3 children, and deeply committed to causes he believes in, from mental health advocacy to environmental responsibility to the development of young leaders through his Earthshot Prize. What he also appears to be is someone who has decided that the monarchy he inherits will not carry the same weight of complicated, extended arrangements that characterized earlier eras. He does not appear to believe that the crown's credibility is served by maintaining informal networks of family members, on either side of the family tree, who draw benefits from proximity to power without contributing in ways that are clearly defined and publicly justifiable. In that sense, the removal of Annabel Elliot from the duchy payroll was not personal. Or rather, it was personal only in the sense that every institutional decision carries some trace of the person making it. At its core, it was a statement about the kind of organization William intends to run. One where roles are earned. Where positions are not extended as gestures of family sentiment. And where the boundary between the royal institution and the personal lives of those adjacent to it is maintained with deliberate care. Whether Camilla's family found this devastating is a separate question. The reports suggest they were unprepared for the swiftness and the firmness of the change. Annabel Elliot had held her position for nearly 20 years. She had built something real and lasting inside the estates of the duchy. And then, with a quiet entry in an annual report, it was over. No fanfare. No ceremony. Just a name that was no longer there. The monarchy that William is quietly preparing to inherit, and in some ways already beginning to shape, will be different from anything that has come before it. Not radically different, not unrecognizably different, but different in ways that will matter enormously to the people involved and to the institution itself. It will be smaller. The era of an extended royal family radiating outward from the palace in concentric circles of title holders, protected figures, and privileged associates appears to be drawing to a close. What is replacing it is a tighter, more deliberate structure. One centered on the direct line of succession and supported only by those who earn their place through clear, visible public service. It will be leaner. William's stated awareness of the cost of the monarchy is not a minor footnote. It reflects a fundamental belief that the institution must justify itself to the public that funds it, and that justification cannot rest on tradition alone. Every expenditure, every arrangement, every relationship will need to make sense in the modern world. And it will carry, whether William intends it or not, the permanent imprint of his personal history. The son who watched his mother cry. The boy who stood beside her coffin in front of the world. The man who never entirely separated his sense of duty from his sense of grief. These things do not disappear. They become the invisible foundation beneath every visible decision. When historians eventually look back at this era in British royal history, they may well identify a specific moment when everything began to quietly change. Not the coronation of Charles. Not the death of Elizabeth. Not even the marriage of William and Catherine, though that was certainly a watershed. They may identify a line in an annual report, published on a quiet Wednesday in July 2024, in which a name that had appeared for nearly 2 decades simply wasn't there anymore. A line that most people never read. A line that said, in the careful language of institutional paperwork, that a new era had already begun.